Wake up, mommy. The new version of the Steam Deck just dropped. The Steam Deck OLED. Valve listened to all of the feedback that everybody has had over the past year or so with the original Steam Deck. And finally, we have a new revised version of the Steam Deck OLED. Not only does it have an OLED screen, we have a lot of different things that make up it's a refresh. It's not a Steam Deck 2.0, but a new version of the Steam Deck that is very impressive and offers a lot of new features that are a pretty drastic improvement over the original Steam Deck. So first, I want to talk about a lot of the differences between the old version, which they are calling the Steam Deck LCD, versus the new version, which is the Steam Deck OLED. First of all, on the new Steam Deck OLED, we have an orange power button. It signifies that you have the brand new version of the Steam Deck. Kind of just cool to see that they've added a little bit something on the outside that sort of signifies that you not only do you have a bigger screen, it tells you that it's a Steam Deck OLED. Talking about the screen, obviously the biggest and most noticeable difference when looking at this version of the Steam Deck versus the old one is the brand new, or I guess maybe, who knows. I think there's talk that the OLED panel is maybe being sourced from the same place that the Switch OLED panel is coming from. So maybe not necessarily a new panel per se, but it's new to the Steam Deck. The new 7.4 inch display versus the old 7-inch display on the LCD model. The LCD model would go up to 400 nits of peak brightness, versus this new panel will get up to 600 nits when not using HDR, and in HDR mode. We do have HDR on this screen. It will get up to 1,000 nits. New joysticks, they're like a little bit more dished out. They're not as flat, giving you a little bit more grip maybe. And the shaft of the joystick is black now, versus the old, which was gray. New speakers. Apparently the speakers in this are a little bit more bassy and a little bit more clear. I love the speakers in the old Steam Deck, so any improvement is really awesome. There's apparently new touchpads that have a bit better haptic feedback, and the shoulder buttons are redesigned in a way that they are easier to press no matter where you're pressing them. So I guess like the old version, if you have longer fingers like me, if you're pressing on the inside of the button, closer to the center of the device, it's harder to press versus on the outer edge. So new shoulder buttons, so that's cool. So here's one of the big reasons why this version of the Steam Deck is more power efficient. We have a 6nm chip versus the older 7nm chip. Now, this doesn't mean that we're getting a brand new SoC. It's basically a more refined version of what we had before. So there's not going to be any like big drastic improvements in performance versus the original chip. And it's not like we're upgrading to something that's closer to like the Z1 or the Z1 Extreme. It's still going to be relatively the same performance, but here we're getting better thermals because the power draw is going to be a little bit better. Overall, just a little bit more efficient of a chip, which kind of leads into the bigger battery. So we have a bigger 50 watt hour battery versus the old 40 watt hour battery. So the combination of the OLED screen, which will be more power efficient, the chip, which is more power efficient, and the bigger battery, Valve is claiming that we're going to get a 50% increase in battery life, which it's kind of hard to wrap your head around because it's like still the same size. Like the Steam Deck is still the same thing in your hands, but Apparently it's a little bit lighter too, which is cool. 5% lighter. Kind of just that sounds like an Apple thing. It's like, well, our phone is 5% lighter this year. I mean, it's probably not going to make that big of a difference, but the difference in hardware all together create this this version of the Steam Deck that is more efficient, and it should create less heat. It should just perform better than the original, which is awesome. We still get 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM, but now we're running at faster speeds, so 6400 megatransfers per second versus the old 5500 megatransfers per second. I don't know what that's going to do necessarily in terms of performance. Obviously, faster is better in most cases, so I'm glad that they've taken the opportunity to upgrade that. Something that maybe you don't necessarily care about, but I do, is that they're no longer using Phillips head screws to hold the device together. They're actually using Torx. So if you have any experience like I do of taking your Steam Deck apart or whatever, Torx is just better. So it's really cool that they're using Torx. I'm so happy. The fan is supposed to be a little bit bigger and a little bit better and a little quieter, so that's good. Another big improvement is the new Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chip. The old Steam Deck had Wi-Fi 5 and Bluetooth 5.0. The new chip is Wi-Fi 6E, and we have Bluetooth 5.3. This is supposed to be a huge upgrade for download speeds and stuff like that. Like, if you've ever downloaded anything onto your original Steam Deck and it's a big file, it's a big game, it takes a while. And this is supposed to really improve those download speeds. We get the same 45-watt charger in the box, so nothing different there. But the new case is sort of like this two-piece case where you can take the inside of it out and make it like a smaller case. You know, the case on the Steam Deck is big. So they've made it so that you can kind of take the inside out, and then it's kind of like those Tomtock cases where it's like a little bit more thin and slimlined. All right, let's talk about pricing. They are retaining the 3-tier sort of structure that they had before. But they've basically taken the mid-tier Steam Deck, the old Steam Deck, and replacing the bottom tier or the cheapest one with that 256 gigabyte model. So for $399, you get a 256 gigabyte LCD model. So this is the old one. This has all of the old stuff. There's no upgrade to any of the components or anything. This is for all intents and purposes, this is the old model. But from there, if you pay $549, you're getting the mid-tier spec. They bumped it up $20 from what the old pricing structure used to be, but this is the OLED. This is the OLED with a 512 gigabyte SSD. You're getting the new chip, you're getting, you know, the new Wi-Fi module, you're getting the new battery, you're getting all the new stuff. This is probably the one that I would recommend that most people go for, because I'll discuss later kind of like why I think that. But for the 1 terabyte model, which is really cool to see, it's really awesome to see that they finally have a 1 terabyte model. The SSD prices have gone down, so it's good that we have a 1 terabyte model. If you want to get a 1 terabyte Steam Deck without having to mess with anything, opening it up, whatever, it's available for $649. You get a 1 terabyte OLED Steam Deck, and you get some other extra goodies, exclusive startup movie and virtual keyboard theme, whatever. That stuff really doesn't matter too much to me, having had the original $649 tier that only came with the 512 gigabyte model. You got a little extra thing here and there. You got a case that had a cool little blue logo on it instead of the white one, you know. But my biggest concern with this version of the Steam Deck is that we are getting that etched display. So it's not glossy. It's the matte screen on the higher end models of the Steam Deck that we've seen before. With an OLED display, you get better colors and deeper blacks with a glossy display. So between the two, you know, if you wanted to save $100 and also just have the better OLED experience, I think the $549 512 gigabyte OLED is the way to go. And if you wanted to add a screen protector on there that makes it a matte screen, you can do that. And vice versa, you can also do the same thing with the 1 terabyte model. You can put a glossy screen protector on that, and that sort of fixes it. So that's up to you. It really depends on what you want. I just think it will look nicer with the glossy display. So that's just my 2 cents. Before we move on to the next topic that I kind of want to touch on before we wrap up, they still have the 512 gigabyte model and the 64 gigabyte original Steam Decks, and they've discounted those $349 for the 64 gigabyte model, and the for the 512 you're going to pay $449. Those are pretty good discounts for those models, but I would check out the certified refurbished Steam Decks. And actually, it's funny, my buddy actually texted me earlier and said he was gonna buy a Steam Deck, and he had purchased the 64 gigabyte model, but he paid $349 because he bought a new one. Certified refurbished Steam Decks are great, and from what I've seen, they've been pretty good. Earlier, they had 64 gigabyte models available, and now they don't. But for $279, you could get a certified refurbished Steam Deck, and if you want to tinker, you can replace the SSD yourself. We've talked about it before, but it's there. They were there earlier. He actually ended up going with the 512 gigabyte model because for $359, still cheaper, or it's just a little bit more expensive than the new 64 gigabyte model. But you're getting 512 gigabytes of storage, and you're getting that extra screen. So the certified refurbished Steam Decks are probably going to stick around, you know, as long as they're in stock, and the old Steam Deck still exists. So, and the warranties on those still exist. So they're going to have a flow of refurbished Steam Decks for the foreseeable future. So they still exist. And if you want to get into if you want to get a Steam Deck, it's an option. You don't have to get the OLED. And these are compelling prices for those. But let's move on to the last topic I want to talk about, which is the Steam Deck OLED competitive with what we're seeing with Windows handhelds like the Asus ROG Ally and the Legion Go? You know, we're getting into holiday season, and probably looking at getting some gifts for some people. And if you're looking at getting something like the Steam Deck or a Windows handheld, there's some interesting things to consider. So let's compare the 512 gigabyte models of all of these devices. We're looking at the Steam Deck here. For $549, we get a 512 gigabyte Steam Deck OLED. With the ROG Ally, with the Z1 Extreme chip in it, for Black Friday, it's actually down to $619.99. So for less than $100 more, you can get a more capable. I want to say more capable. It's absolutely more powerful, and with it being a Windows device, you can play more games. But the Steam Deck has taken great strides in being more compatible with a giant amount of games. I mean, there's so many games on Steam, and you can play just about all of them on the Steam Deck. There are still games like Destiny 2 and Call of Duty and things that have anti-cheats that don't work with the Steam Deck. And going with a Windows handheld, you're going to avoid those hiccups. but the experience on a Windows handheld isn't necessarily as optimized. You know, you're still just running Windows on a little screen. But I'm just gonna say that the ROG Ally is a very compelling option, especially at this Black Friday price point. And you shouldn't overlook it. It's still a really good device, and the person that you're shopping for this holiday season is probably going to enjoy it regardless. I also want to touch on the Lenovo Legion Go. Also has the same chip as the ROG Ally, still as powerful, has a big 8.9 inch or whatever screen. It's a big screen. That came out so recently that the prices, they're not doing Black Friday deals for that. So for the 512 gigabyte model for the Lenovo Legion Go, you're going to be looking at paying $699. So if I had to make a recommendation, I would go for the Steam Deck because a lot of those competitive games that use anti-cheats that aren't compatible with the Steam Deck, I wouldn't want to play them on my Steam Deck anyway. I have a PC that I play those games on, so I don't really have those issues. But if you're looking for all-in-one device that somebody wants to play literally all of their games on, and they want to do it portably, I think the ROG Ally is very compelling. I almost forgot to mention this. They have a limited edition version of the Steam Deck OLED that they're going to be dropping on November 16th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It has a black transparent shell, which is very similar to, you know, a lot of the mods that people were doing to their original Steam Decks. The sticks have this orange plastic instead of the black. I think it looks really, the grills are orange as well. I think it looks really, really cool for $30 more. It's supposed to be very limited, so keep an eye out if you're interested, and if you live in the United States or Canada, maybe you could pick this one up. This one's gonna have the etched display, so keep that in mind. But it looks really cool, and I've heard that if there's enough interest in this, which there will be, there absolutely will be. If there's enough interest in this, they may do other colorways in the future. Anyway, what do you think about the Steam Deck OLED? Are you interested in picking one up this holiday season? Do you already have a Steam Deck and you want to upgrade to the new OLED version? Leave all of that down in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm pretty close to hitting my goal of 1,000 subscribers, and I'd like to hit that by the end of this year. So anything that you do is very appreciated. So thank you. So with that, we'll see you next time, and have a good week.